Hello class, welcome to week 10. Now previously we have been looking at, we looked at the people of the pre-colonial era and how they came to settle into Uganda. Yeah, we looked at the different ethnic groups, Sabantu, the Nilotes, the Nile Hamites, the Sudanic people, and how they entered Uganda and settled in. Now, later on, after them, the foreigners from other countries also came into Uganda for various reasons. We looked at the traders, we looked at the explorers, the missionaries, and the colonialists. Now, we've looked at the explorers before, but I want us to look at them further in detail. Now, explorers are people that move, we still have explorers today, move to foreign countries, foreign places, in search of geographical areas of interest. They want to discover different stuff. And that's one of the reasons why some of the explorers, the first explorers came to Uganda. They were interested in discovering the source of the Nile. Now, knowing that we are looking at the Nile, I thought we should also look at this map in order to understand much about the Nile. Now, the explorers were interested in the source of the Nile. Yeah, they knew where the mouth of the Nile was. That was in Egypt. It pours out in the Mediterranean Sea, but they wanted to know, where does it begin? Yeah, where does it start from? And that was very important. And also, they were interested in countries like Egypt, where the Nile was a very important source of water, especially for irrigation. And so they needed to know, where does this Nile begin from? You can see it begins from Uganda here in Lake Victoria, where its source is, and then it moves up to southern Sudan. It moves to Sudan. It's also a major source of water in southern Sudan and in Sudan. It also moves to Ethiopia, and then finally up into Egypt, and then it pours into the Mediterranean Sea. So they wanted to discover where its source was, so that earlier on they were actually interested in controlling all the countries where the Nile was. Now, these were some of the explorers that came to Uganda. We had John Speke in this first picture. In the second picture is Richard Burton. And then in the third is James Grant. John Speke initially came with Richard Burton. The two, John Speke and Richard Burton, were British explorers and soldiers in the British Army. They were sent by the Royal Geographical Society in 1856 to locate the source of the Nile. Remember when we said they are always interested in finding out geographical areas. And you can see the organization that sent them was really a geographical organization. And so they were interested in the source of the Nile. So this here is where the source of the Nile is, but it was only put there after John Speke discovered it. So while on their way, Richard fell sick and stayed at Tambora, and John continued northwards to Uganda. Now, on the 30th July 1856, John Speke saw a lake locally called Nalubale, and then named it Victoria after Queen Victoria. Remember what I said? They were interested in geographical areas, and so whenever they met one, physical features, they would give it a name. Then in 1860, John Speke, before John Speke came with Grant, he went back, told Richard Grant that he had discovered the source of the Nile, but Richard Grant did not believe him. But they went back to England. Then later, because there had to be someone who would prove what John Speke had said, John Speke came back in 1860 with James Grant to stress the source of the Nile. Again, James Grant fell sick and was left behind, and so John Speke continued by himself. On 19th February 1862, he reached Buganda visited Mutesa 1 and continued eastwards. Mutesa 1 was the Kabaka. Remember, the title of the king in Buganda was the Kabaka of Buganda. On 28th July 1862, he was able to see the source of the Nile in today's Ginger. That is today the present Ginger. He discovered it. And then he also saw an outlet of River Nile, which he called Ripon Falls, after Lord Ripon, the president of the Royal Geographical Society then. And then somehow James Grant later on joined him and was also able to see Nile, and they continued on their journey. So this is a picture of Ripon Falls before the construction of the Owen Falls Dam. Remember, the Owen Falls Dam was constructed, and so it's what helps in the distribution, in the creation of hydroelectric power. So there we are. So, but before it was called Ripon Falls. We have another explorer here called Sir Samuel Baker. He was also a British explorer, but a colonialist as well. We will look at his role as a colonialist later. He wanted to trace the Nile from its mouth in Egypt southwards to its source in Uganda. Yeah. So because for him, he was coming from Egypt and wanted to just trace it up to its source. So he and his wife, they were later joined. He and his wife were later joined by James Grant and John Speke, after they had discovered the source of the Nile and were happy about the news. He and his wife named Albert, Lake Albert. Remember, they were explorers interested in geographic and physical areas. So they called it Muitanzige they called it Lake Albert, locally known as Muitanzige, after the husband of Queen Victoria of England then. So Muitanzige means killer of locusts, and that is how the lake was known. They also named Makshon Falls after Sir Roderick Makshon, the president of Royal Geographical Society. So that was, these are very important facts to remember about them, how they named these two different geographical areas. We have another explorer here. He's called Henry Moulton Stanley. This one here was a journalist, and he was sent first to trace David Livingstone, another traveler that was stranded. They met at Ujiji in England, and later on he returned to England. But he came back to Africa in 1874, visited Kabaka Mutesa I, sailed around Lake Victoria, and confirmed the information about the source of the Nile. Yeah, so they did not rely on John Speake's information alone. They sent in other people like him to confirm John Speake's information. So he then saw a mountain on his return journey and named it Mount Renzori. So if they ask you who named Mount Renzori, here is the gentleman. Here is a map that shows how the explorers moved, the different routes that they moved. Okay, so we have, this is also an opportunity for us to look at the features of a map. A map has a boundary. Sometimes you're asked to make a map and you don't even put a boundary. A map has a compass. A map has a key that guides us to read what is in the map. A map also has a scale. It also has a title. You can see down here, it has been put down, a map showing explorers' routes in Uganda, but mostly it being up would be preferable. So this is how they traveled. These, John Speke and Grant, traveled from Tanzania. Remember, they were coming from Zanzibar through routes of Tanzania. They traveled from Tanzania and came up here. This is their route. The red dotted one is their route. They came to, especially John's Peak, yeah, and then Grant joined him. They saw the source of the Nile. It's around here. You can see this is central Uganda. Then they move a little to the east where they found the source of the Nile, and then they moved up, yeah, to where Bunyoro Kingdom was, yeah, because this is where they met Sir Samuel Baker and informed him about the news, and then they continued northwards and then proceeded up to Egypt and then to England. You will also notice that another here is Stanley. Henry Morton Stanley also came from Tanzania down this way, came around here. You see the routes that he took. He visited this side of Lake Edward. He was in position to find Mount Renzori. He came around to where the source of the Nile was. You see his route. He was in position to see. He moved around Lake Victoria, in other words, and then uh, finally went back through Tanzania as well. Yeah, the route is very clear. And then we have Baker. Remember, Sir Samuel Baker was coming from Egypt. He wanted to discover, the Nile route southwards. So he came from Egypt down this side from northern Uganda, came to western Uganda, where he discovered Muitanzige and called it Lake Albert, where he discovered Makshon Falls. The falls called it Makshon Falls. And then he was in position. This is where Grant and Speke found him, and then they all traveled back. That's why the route is going up like this. They all traveled back together through Egypt and then to England. And that is it. That's how the explorers traveled. That's how the explorers came into Uganda and the various reasons for which they came to Uganda. So I urge you to go back and complete your assignments based on this video that we have, this lesson that we've looked at. And because very soon more questions on explorers will be popping up, so it's good for you to be ready and equipped. History is very interesting. I enjoy it, and I know you enjoy it too. So yeah, so that's it for today. Have a lovely day.